Hello, everyone, and welcome to Week 4 Q&A. So, big, most important announcement. Please, everyone, remember that your deadline this week is Sunday, not Monday. And this is because Full Sail literally does not allow us to move the deadline to Monday because the term is over on Sunday. So, yes, everything will be due Sunday night at midnight. Extensions are still requestable. Just keep in mind, it is difficult to be finishing up one class when you're beginning another one. And don't forget, next term is December, and December is always nutty at Full Sail because Full Sail doesn't plan for December to have 3 weeks. It only plans for December to have 4 weeks. And Thanksgiving cuts into it. So basically, we don't have time to give you guys an extra week for Thanksgiving because we don't have that much time. All right. So, remember, deadlines are on Sunday. And let's start talking about our week 2 content. Or week 7. No. Week 4 project 7 content. We will be texturing. So, before we get started, I want to ask you guys to tell me what you know about texturing. And of course, if you tell me something pretty accurate and pretty important, I will give you a cookie. Is there a break next week? Not for online students. Like I said, we literally do not have an extra week to give you, so the deadlines will remain the same. But I can tell you that you don't have to come to class on Friday or Thursday. But your assignments are going to be due for week 1 on the following Sunday, Monday, whatever. Robert, speak up. Unmute for me. Texturing involves creating different maps to create realistic objects. You guys really should kind of unmute and speak these things. You're kind of just typing randomness, random facts. Textures are seamless on all sides. Tileable textures are. We're going to be using tileables. All right, nobody wants to be bold and unmute and answer, so I guess I will just move on. Let's actually look how many people we got in here. A group of 7 tonight. Okay. So, we're going to talk about the different types of textures that you guys will need to be thinking about. Now, where do textures go when we plug them into our Maya scene? Where do we put them? I just got a random albedo. The hypershade will help us keep track of our textures, but that's not where we put them. Trick question on the surface. What's a surface? Do you mean a Pixar surface? This isn't a trick question. I'm actually asking you for the technical correct answer for where you put a texture to get it to display in Maya. In a bump map? No, a bump map is a map that you would put into Maya. So the answer to this is that we are going to be plugging our textures into our materials. Specifically, I was hoping you guys would get the materials part. Specifically, we are going to be plugging them into the material values. Those values that we spent so hard setting up. We're actually going to be putting textures into several of them, the values on the Pixar surface. For example, the diffuse color map, which is what most people think of as a texture, something like this, right? That is actually going to go into our diffuse color channel. So if we were to actually open Maya, which I should have done, so if we were to open Maya, and let's say we had a polygon primitive. Come on. Anything will be fine, because I just need to assign a Pixar surface to it. That is a tiny sphere. Okay, so let's say we had our Pixar surface. We're going to be plugging our texture into the color map. So we're actually going to be plugging it in right here on the checker box. Now, what this does is it takes the color value that we have here and replaces it with our texture. So this brings me to a very tricky question that I want to talk to you guys about. There's a reason I spent time trying to direct you guys to thinking about the materials that you guys did and the material values that you put in. So you can only see my desktop. Okay, this is our diffuse map. It means you guys missed this slide about Sunday and this slide, which really doesn't have anything important on it. But yeah, diffuse. So in Maya, we plug in our diffuse to the material right here in the checker box for the color. So we spent a long time setting up those material values. We are going to be replacing some of them with texture files. Now, the question is, when do we need to plug a texture in? And when is it okay to leave the material value to control that specific channel? That is the question. You know what? Let's grab some reference. Give me a second here. Let's talk about... Why do I have materials in here? I didn't delete Project 6. There it is. Okay. So let's grab some interior reference. This chair, that's actually a good example. So, for the fabric, do we need a texture for this fabric? Okay, I've got some yeses. Now, think about the material that you guys set up for the fabric in your scene. Do we need textures? What textures do we need? What material channels need texture? The color channel. Okay, the color channel could use it. There is sort of this like faux fabric texture. What else? Now, you guys spent a lot of time playing with a lot of different sliders. Okay, so Robert, you said that we need a color map. Why do we need a color map for this fabric material? Why can't we just leave it a blue material color? Okay, let's put a pin in that for a second. Let's talk about this wall behind us. This white brick wall with paint over it. Because the material would be very smooth, we want plush fabric. Not quite. Material roughness is handled by the material's primary specular roughness. We could make it look rough without having to put a texture on it. Let's talk about this wall behind us. Now, does this wall need a color map? Does it need a diffuse color map? So far, we've only really talked about diffuse. So asking you guys about the other channels wasn't really fair. Do we need a diffuse color map for this wall? Robert, you said, I think it would need to be a bump map, but you haven't answered my question. Do we need a color map specifically? Forget about bump, specifically color. Do we need a color map? Correct. No, because we already did the color with the Pixar surface. So why do we need a color map for the chair, but not for the wall? And anybody can answer. By the way, Robert, you've been giving me some good answers. You do deserve a cookie. Here's your cookie. I realize this is a bit tricky. So, guys, why do we need a color map for the wall? Or why do we need a color map for the chair cushion, but not the wall? All right. I will add a third example in, the floor. Do we need a color map for the floor? Yes. Why do we need a color map for the floor, guys? You are correct. Would you use a color map because it's smooth, yet it's changes in color? Trey, Robert, you guys get the cookie. Here you go. You deserve a cookie for your answer because you hit on the key answer, which is there are differences in color. The same with the chair. There are differences in color beyond just the shadows. If there is more than one color value, you need a texture to represent that visual color, right? Because it's not, the answer isn't one, right? The answer isn't orange. It's the same thing with our Dome light, right? We had to put an image in there because we needed lights of more than one color. Anytime the answer is more than one color, you need a texture to answer that. So, and it's the same thing with a bump map, right? If a surface is smooth, it has one surface value. If it's bumpy, then that surface has more than one height value. So you need to add a bump map. And what this allows us to do is have, height detail other than geometry, which also leads to displacement maps. Displacement maps are just better bump maps. So we're not going to get into that in this Q&A. If you want to see more about displacement maps, please check out the campus lecture. I believe it's lecture 10 that Tony gets into displacement maps, which he should have recorded on Monday. So that one should be done and out. But yeah, we can't get into displacement maps. We just don't have enough time tonight. Reflection maps or spec maps, those, if there is a difference in level of specularity to the surface, then we need to assign a primary specular face color map or edge color if you're doing metallics. But anywhere where there's a difference in reflectivity, we need a map to control what that difference is. All right, so roughness, right? We kind of learned a lot about roughness last week. We learned that roughness is super important. Any object that has a difference in roughness on our surface that we are assigning that material to, again, we need a material to plug into. So let's look back at our reference here. Let's go back to the chair cushion. Do we need a color map for the chair cushion? We already know we do. Do we need a bump map for the chair cushion? With high res, yes. What does that mean? With high res, yes. I don't know what that means. Well, Robert, let's think about this. You want to consider for a bump map if you can actually see the detail, right? If the detail is smooth or is rough, but it's smooth enough that you're not going to see it from the camera, don't waste your time putting a bump map on there because it's going to be wasted effort. You want to make sure you would actually see that bump, and the bump on the bump detail on the cushion is actually fairly subtle. So I actually wouldn't use a bump map. Now, do we need a primary specular face color map? No, we don't. There is no change in the level of specularity on the cushion. It is uniform reflective across the surface. That's correct. What about roughness? Do we need a roughness map? No, we don't need a roughness map. For this one, the diffuse map would suffice. Now, by suffice, I mean it still needs values in those other settings, but the material values that you've already set will suffice because it's only one value. Now, let's talk about the brick wall behind us. We don't need a color map. We've already determined that. Do we need a bump map? Absolutely, we need a bump map. You guys are right. We 100% need a bump map to get that brick detail. That is all bump. Do we need a primary specular map? I got no's, yeses, and no's. We don't need one because the paint that is on the wall is uniform across the whole wall and has a uniform level of reflectivity. So we don't need a texture to define that value. Do we need a roughness map? Seen a lot of yeses. The answer is no, because this wall has been painted over. If it was an exposed brick wall, there might be a difference in the roughness between the bricks and the grout. That would be subtle, though, because they are both considerably rough. But again, it's been painted over. That paint has the exact same value of roughness across, so we wouldn't need a roughness. What about the floor? So we know we need a color map. Do we need a bump map? No, we don't. Do we need a roughness map? I think Brittany was the only one bold enough to answer me that time. No, it's pretty uniform. To be honest, I wouldn't use a roughness map. You could, because I can see from the image the floor is kind of dirty, so it has dirts in spots, so you could use a roughness map to define what areas are dirty. In fact, that is the exact sort of thing that I would define in Substance. But you could do that, and you would get kind of like a nice, oh, it's dirty over here, but it's cleaner over here effect. That's actually really cool to do with textures, because you can be like, oh, it's dusty in different areas. It's kind of realistic. Again, that's the exact sort of thing I like to do in Substance Painter. But for general use, no, you don't need to, unless specifically you are going for a dirty floor with like footprints and dirt. And if you want to talk about that sort of stuff, please watch my Substance Lecture 9 from a campus lecture, because we spend all day talking about that exact sort of thing. So for the most part, you guys are probably not going to be using roughness maps or primary specular edge color maps for this assignment, unless you're getting into Substance Painter. You're getting into Substance Painter, I want you to start thinking about that sort of surface wear and edge detailing that definitely will have changes in roughness in primary specular edge color. Other than that, it's probably going to remain the same. Some examples of what might need differences is, for example, this wooden stool. It has paint here, but you can see the paint's been chipped off almost all over the stool. So this smooth painted area would have a higher level of roughness, or a higher level of lower level of roughness than the rest of the object. The wooden part that is exposed is going to have a much higher level of roughness than the smooth painted surface. But these are really old, and that has worn off in several places. You need reference to look for details like this, because this is the sort of wear and tear edge detailing and wearing that Substance Painter is just known for changing how things look in the entire industry, because of the tools that it allows us to do that exact sort of workflow. But again, for this assignment, for the most part, with the exception of the Substance Painter stuff, we're not going to be doing probably any really specular face color, specular edge color stuff, or roughness, specular roughness stuff, or edge color, face color. Blech. Terms, all of them. In fact, I had to look very hard for an example to do for this class that would actually require a roughness map. And then primary specular, or specularity maps, reflection maps. Let's call them reflection maps. It's just easier. So if you are doing a ceramic tile floor with grout, then you actually will need to use roughness maps. You're probably not going to do that. But if you were, you would need that. See if there's anything else worth talking about here. No. Yeah, I could use this one, but actually the one that I was using with the chair had far more examples that were helpful. You could use a bump map if you had this, if you wanted that sort of like slight bump in the grain of the wood. But you would use a very low strength roughness map because it's very powerful. These I would actually just use a material with that antroscopy that we did on the thermos. And those are actually renders from a very old scene that I worked on. Let us get rid of those. Trash. Lamps, picture frames, table. This table you could do with or without a texture because you can't really see their texture. It has a very low roughness value, so it is very shiny. Sliding door. Oh, we don't have the sliding door anymore. That's very sad. Nervous. Okay. So I kind of talked about what these were already in my example. Roughness requires this. Alpha is luminance. Don't forget about that when you're doing roughness. The last map that we're going to talk about, but I'm not really going to show, is a opacity map. The only place that we really use opacity maps are going to be the wine labels. They're kind of interesting. They're called presence maps in RenderMan, and Tony Saxon will do a demo on that in Lecture 10 again. Campus Lecture 10. They're not super useful in this assignment. They are really useful in workflow stuff, especially you game art guys. Cutout alpha is a technique that game developers have been using for a long time and is still very, 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 very widely used. Robert asks, are we finally going to get substance projects back into Maya? Yes. If you watch my substance lecture for Lecture 9, I do actually bring the textures back into Maya and show you guys how to set all that up. So, and if you do substance work, please do bring it back into RenderMan, not really Maya, RenderMan, so we can see that in your final project. We have some examples from the previous months where some people have done some really good substance work, and I would love to see more of it. So, what was I saying? Oh, yeah, the presence maps. Really, the only place you guys are going to use these is the wine label. So if you're doing the exterior scene, the wine label has that sleeve on it. That is for assigning your wine label to it, wine label texture, and that requires a presence map, a cutout opacity map, or an alpha map. So many names. So many names for the same thing. I prefer to call it opacity, but it's also called alpha channel, which I will say alpha channel a lot because I've been saying that since 2004. Presence map, it's just Pixar being, or RenderMan being unique and being like, oh, we have to have our own names for everything. I hate it. I hate it when these softwares do that. They're like, oh, we got to rename everything and have our own special names. Drives me nuts. Especially when I think it was Kojima Studios came along and they kind of defined PBR workflow and they started calling diffuse maps albedo maps for no real reason, just to confuse me for about a year and a half before I figured out, oh, it's just a color map. It doesn't have any of the bump map stuff in it that we've been cheating for years. I was very mad at Kojima Studios for a good 6 months. I went to a lecture and I was so confused because they kept saying albedo, and I'm like, what is an albedo map? It's diffuse map. This was, I think, 2011, me. PBR was just starting to be a thing. Thankfully, a very helpful person from Naughty Dog, who is on our advisory board, kind of like steered me in the right directions. Like, you need to go talk to these people, and I was like, okay. And I wound up at the Pixar or at the Allegorithmic booth, and they opened my eyes, a whole new world of texturing. Okay, enough gushing. Let's actually start doing some texture work. Now, the first thing you guys are going to have to do is you're actually going to have to go and start looking for your source images. These are actually those things last week that I told you to not that or that I told you wasn't reference. It's still not reference. Okay, so let's say we're looking for that same concrete floor we had last week. Concrete. When you just fine, whatever. So this is the audio crapped out. You guys hear me? Oh, I'm back. Okay, so this is concrete. This is what I want you guys to actually be saving out as your image that you're going to bring into Photoshop to start generating textures, this sort of thing. So if I was to do ceramic tile floor, which I'm going to do, actually, cancel that. Here. So I would go and get something like this. Oh, they're not super good for tiled. I mean, this looks good, but it would not tile well. Ooh, what's this? I like that one. That was kind of fun. That one's better. I know it's kind of boring, but you want boring to start your tiled texture. Is that good compared to my reference? Let's check. No, I have a very unique reference. It's kind of better than anything else, but yeah, I would start out with something like this, or something like that last one I just clicked on and totally lost. Something like this. You know what? Let's try something different tonight. It might go poorly. It might go poorly, but we will learn together. I kind of like that experience when we learn together. So we're going to drop this in here, and this is going to be our new ceramic tile floor starting image. We will learn together if this is a good texture. It might go poorly. Tony Bagsby 2019. It might go very poorly. We will find out. Worst case scenario, I revert to the old texture and start doing that. Okay, now there is something very, very important that I want to discuss with you guys. And this is one of those moments where you can be the heroes of Discord. If you learn this one simple lesson, the 8 people here, you can be the heroes of Discord and propagate this information to all the people that are going to ignore it. Now, in the top half of your Photoshop templates, where you place your look development reference, do I want these source images that you are downloading to start creating your textures, or do I want the same exact images you gave me last time? In your lesson 6. Which one do I want in your top part of the template where your look development reference goes? Robert says new source images. Do you guys agree or disagree? Okay. Brittany says new source images. The different images. You guys are universally agreeing that you want the images that you're going to be downloading this month to start creating your textures. And I am sad to say that is not correct. You guys are all wrong. However, I will give you a chubby corgi cookie for your bravery. In fact, I want the look development images you gave me last month because those are reference images, look development reference. And I want look development reference. I don't want your textures because this information does not tell me what your scene is supposed to look like. It tells me what you use to generate your textures. I don't care what you use to start generating your textures. I know what your textures are going to look like. I can see them from your rendered image. Don't need that. Need your reference because I need to know what it's supposed to look like. So, reference images, not textures in the templates. This is very important. This is very, very important because if you give me textures, I don't know what your stuff is supposed to look like, and I have to take off pretty much 30 points. That's a big hit on your grade. So make sure you're giving me reference, not textures. Textures I will see in your render. You're going to need those. They will be there in the render, not in the template. Okay, so let us take that new image that I downloaded. Where is Photoshop? Photo. You know, it's funny. I never generate textures in Photoshop anymore, except for this class. I use Painter, or Designer, or Alchemist. I do skyboxes here, though. I still do skyboxes in Photoshop. Okay, so let's grab our new image. We're going to open this with Photoshop. And let us grab our ceramic tile reference. We're going to open this with fetching. It's fetching. Quit fetching. Photoshop. And then I am also going to grab this cutting board image. So this is our reference for the cutting board, by the way. And we are going to work on that. So Photoshop. All right, tablet, you are now in center stage. You guys can't see this, but I am using my tablet as of right now. It's super important. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is check for tiling. This means I'm actually going to take the background, copy it, paste it. This means if I was to take my image, shrink it down, and then place another version of it right next to it, I would not notice the repeating. And this one is actually fairly good for that. This is why I have the cutting board. Oh, no, it's not. Problem. Yeah, that's a problem. It's gonna be an issue. So it tiles horizontally, not vertically. Dang it. Dang it. Okay. Yep. That would be a difficult problem to solve. Ooh, and this colored bit right here. See how this bit's darker? That is very noticeable in the repeating. Okay, so this one's going to be a bit of a challenge for me to fix. You guys are going to have some fun with me tonight. But first of all, let's talk about how to fix some tiling. And we're going to do that using this cutting board texture because it is easy for me to demo. So off the top of my head, we are going to, again, we're going to again take this and we're going to, we're going to copy it. We're like, okay, well, it's not too bad there, but if we tile it this way, you guys see that vertical line? That is called a texture scene, and that is what we do not want. Also, all of these like knots are not super groovy, as we can clearly see the repeating. So, all right, what we're going to do now is we're going to, first thing I'm going to do is change this image size so it's a power of 2, because my brain only works in powers of 2 after all these years. So we're going to go to, what is going on here? This is just crazy. I only have these swatches? Photoshop, you're weird. It's new Photoshop. All right, 2048. Yeah, because I like powers of 2. Actually, I want this one to be 2048. All right, does this work? Okay, Photoshop's weird. New version of Photoshop, I'm not quite used to it. Okay, so I've got a power of 2. I'm going to go and I'm going to to canvas size, yeah. Pixels, and then this is going to be 2048. And it will crop the outside. That's exactly what I want you to do. Please crop it. Now it's a perfect square. That's good. That's what I want. And now what we're going to do is we are going to take this, and I should always have a copy. So this is my base. And then filter, other, offset, 1024. That is exactly half of 2048. So now we can see that we don't have to worry about the tiling in this direction, because it has this sort of natural tile. We got to get rid of this seam. We got to get rid of some of these knots. And this, my friends, this is where we will use the legendary clone stamp. Where are you, clone stamp? There it is, clone stamp. Now, there are some tools such as the spot healing brush, which can kind of do the job. It didn't do the job. It might be like good for getting rid of one of these knots, maybe. Yeah, I mean, it kind of did it. It's terrible. And then there's the healing brush. Oh, I have to, what? No, okay, so I have to alt click. Boop. Wow, the healing brush is terrible. And then there's the patch tool. Yeah, that's not good either. I don't use that one ever. But clone stamp has been around for years, and it's one of the staples that we always go back to. So the way this works is we're going to get in here, and we are going to sample an area. Oh my, it's got that ugly patch. So we're going to sample an area, and I like to use these sort of planks here to my advantage. And I line one up, and we just sort of paint over it. And what it's doing is it's copying from the area I sampled over here into our new area. I'm actually way too close. All right, so that wasn't so bad. We got rid of that. It kind of is a direct copy from over here, but I don't think anybody's going to notice that. And then sample, line up that wooden thing, and then there we go. Oh, geez, that's not good. Ah! Okay. I had to do something about that. Too dark. Better, but not perfect. We're getting there. And I'm going to use this to get rid of this knot. Okay, so let's sample this area here. Get rid of that knot and that seam. 2 birds, 1 stone. Oh, dang it. Now we got a difference in color. Ah! There we go. It's starting to blend back in. And then all right. So we do have a seam here. It's subtle, but it's still there. Just gonna get rid of that. And then we will offset back so we can check our work. Not bad, not bad. I still have too many of these dang knots. Now I want to be careful here because I want to leave some for character. But I don't want to leave too many, because then we'll notice the repeating. But I should actually get rid of all of them. I got this one. It's like very trickly on the edge there. You can't get rid of me. I think it's right. Nope. There we go. So now if we were to take this and we were to tile it, the change is not so noticeable. We can still kind of see the repeating verticals, especially with this light brown one. But I could probably actually fix that using the adjustment layers that we're going to do for the tile. So I could actually probably fix that by coming in here and going to levels. Sort of. Nah. So we're going to do all of this on the tile floor in a little bit more detail, but I'm going to see if I can sort of get... No, it's still going to be there. I wanted contrast, and now I have it. Okay. Now, it's still possible to get rid of it. It's just going to be more difficult. Anyway, that's how we get rid of tiling using the clone stamp tool. That's the general idea. So now our goal is actually to take this tiled floor that we have here. We're going to try and make it look like our tiled floor reference here. It's going to be a little difficult because it's not exactly the same. Just wanted to do something different from the other times. So first thing we noticed is that it does not tile vertically. So I have to actually add that in. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the whole thing here and I am going to color select. Oh, there's no grout. This is just paver stones. This is not tile. We can't do this one, guys. I'm sorry. I like the design, but we need grout. Definitely need grout because our tile reference has grout. I could do it in Substance. I could do it way easier in Substance. I can't catch a break with those tiles. It's okay. We'll use the other one. I'm always looking for a better one. This is what I like to start out with. Okay. And it's good because it's more of a pattern, right? Patterns are kind of where we like to start. So I actually always like to grab my reference and copy it into my texture layer. No, paste. So I just kind of like to let it float up there. Because the first thing we're going to do is we are going to copy and paste our reference, but we're going to add that tiling back in. Because if we tile this, this I think this one is, yeah, this one's only 1024. We can see that there's a big problem with it. But because, you know, it's tiles, where is the color picker? You know what? Magic wand, color picker. I'm just going to color pick right here in the middle. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to grab the whole thing here and make a new layer real quick. And I'm going to so I've got a selection around the edges. It's very hard to see. Okay, there it is. I'm going to add in a stroke. What this is going to do, give me 3 pixels. This is going to add a very subtle, you guys can't see it, but it's a very subtle stroke around the edges. It's there. It's just really hard to see. Oh, it is there. I know it's there. And then I like to put a bevel on it. And I think that's really all we need is a slight bevel. My settings are probably different than I usually set them to. So, and then I will merge the layers because now, hang on, crop, because it always screws me up. Filter, offset, ta-da! We have, that is not the correct offset. 512. 512. Now it's in the middle. What's the image size here? 1,000. Okay, so now the goal is to make it look like our reference here. So we have to think about what we need to do to improve that. Number one, the grout is the wrong color because our grout is dark and this grout is light. So we need to fix the color of the grout. We need to change the color of the tiles so they have more red and yellow in it. We need a little bit more contrast in the color. Okay. And I think that is it. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to grab some color balance. And this is going to allow me to shift my midtones more into the red on my CMY and RGB range. So I can shift them a little bit more in the red and yellow. By the way, make sure you don't put this above your reference because then you'll just be chasing a target that's running away from you. I've done that before. So probably less red. It's usually more yellow. And then our highlight, our shadows, I like to just give red to. And then our highlights, just a little bit more yellow. Not much. And there we go. A little bit too much saturation, but we'll take that out. So we always take that out by adding hue saturation lightness, which is only used to remove saturation. That's the only purpose you should ever use it for. You can add saturation, but I don't recommend it. Now, you may be thinking, well, it kind of looks exactly where you started, but it doesn't. Our brain just kind of tricks ourselves into thinking that. This actually looks much more closer to my reference. And I may actually add in a layer that is render clouds because it's got this sort of like red kind of wash in here. So I like to filter. Where's the old render clouds? I haven't used it in a long time. Render clouds. Yeah, that's way too much color. And I know why. So I need to sample two different colors here. I need to sample, where are you? I never find the color picker. So we'll sample this color and we'll sample this color. And now, render clouds. Okay, as I expected, that is way too strong. So opacity and multiply. Not multiply. Lighten. No. You could just do overlay. Multiply, color burn, darken color, overlay, kind of like color burn. Yeah, it just gives it that slight difference. Might need to raise the opacity up a little bit. That's too much. 60. And now we got too much saturation in here again, so saturation back out. And then finally, we do a levels adjustment. So this is the values. So I want to get a little bit closer to the middle. And we do want the sort of pattern to be a bit more subtle. So I like to move this, kind of play with these subtler pattern. I like it. I like it a lot. Now, we are not done because our grout is still the wrong color. So, to fix that, what we need to do is we need to color select magic wand tool. Am I on the right layer? I am on the right layer. Did they change how the magic wand tool works? I'm going to be mad. What just happened? Oh. What are you doing? There we go. Select that and then right click to go to similar. There we go. We'll select all the grout. And then we are going to make a new layer. Actually, we're going to make an adjustment layer. And I think I'll do an invert. So this has a mask on it, right? Do you guys know what a mask is? If I go over to here, what this is it's just a black and white image. And it says white, where it's white, this adjustment layer is doing its thing. Where it's black, it does nothing. So, what did I just do? If we go back to our channels, we have this white inverting. If I was to turn the mask off, yeah, this is what our texture looks like without the mask. Not ideal, but like this is exactly what we want. Woo! For some reason, that looks a lot more saturated than it did 10 seconds ago. A lot more blown out. If I get a little bit crazy in my levels, that is highly possible. Yep, I think I did. Yep. Too much brightness. Bring it down a notch. Oh, that's bringing it up a notch. Okay. Well, that's too far. I feel like there should be more red. There we go. A little bit less. It's common for me to go too far with these things and then be like, nah, I changed my mind. Okay. All right, we're leaving it there. We're not going to fuss with it anymore because we do have to adjust our grout because our grout is too white. So for that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to command select my mask, and I'm just going to do a levels specifically for the grout. Just not doing very much at all. Okay. I think that's good. Needs to be more brown. How do I make it more brown? I don't know. Well, brown is like a really dark valued orange. I don't know. Again, I'll just be futzing with it forever. So this is our color map. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a folder and I'm going to name this color. And I'm going to put all this stuff in here. There we go. Now we have to make our other maps. So we have to make a bump map. So I'm going to grab my background here. Actually, not that one. I'm going to grab this one because this is the one that has our tiling on it. I'm going to make another one. And for this one, I'm going to Command Shift U. And that should have made it completely desaturated. What's going on here? The render clouds, where are they? Oh, wait, what? Hang on here. This is my render clouds. I don't know where the one that we actually added the tiling in to is. Okay, okay. Hang on. add my stroke in, add the bevel and emboss, image, crop, and then 5.2. Whoa, that is too severe. Yeah, sure. Okay. Now, because these are all adjustment layers, none of that is actually going to change any of that. So here is our new base. And this, we're going to turn our color layer off. Command-Shift-U, that desaturates it, which, by the way, is Image, Adjustments, Desaturate. Command-Shift-U. This is going to be our bump map now. Oh, shoot. So we have to start thinking about our reference now in terms of bump, specifically. What do we want for height map detail? Well, this grout here is going to be a different level than the rest of the tile, but overall the tile itself is fairly smooth. Maybe a little bit where these kind of cracks are, but to be honest, it's going to be a very minor amount of detail. So to get this, what we're going to have to do is we're just going to use the same things that we've been using. Come on, Photoshop. Ah, Photoshop, why? Photoshop's not my friend tonight. Levels. And so what we're going to do is we're going to shift away from this. So we're going to be like, okay, I really want my height map to be mostly white and then black. And I don't want it to like be raised up too much. So I'm actually going to lower the height value. And then this is pretty much it. This is my height map. Folder. Bump. Bump and height, I mean the same thing. Tyler, Command-Shift-U is the hotkey for desaturate. And then here's my new base. Turn the bump off. Now we're going to think about our reference in terms of specularity. How much reflectivity are we seeing from the tile compared to the grout? There is going to be more reflectivity that we see in the tile compared to the grout because there's more roughness in the grout. Now, to be honest, remember what I told you guys about specularity last month. Specularity is really between that 0.25 to 0.45 range. Because these are different materials, the ceramic tile and the grout may actually have a difference in specular edge color, but it is going to be very minuscule. So we are going to put that in, but it is going to be very tiny. So again, what I'm going to do here is I'm going to add a levels. And then I kind of bring these in together. Wait, where's this color coming from? Did I forget to desaturate you? I did. I'm probably going to bring these in pretty close. And I do still want some of this to show through, and I definitely want to see the tile. You know, the contrast in the crowd. So we're going to have a very, very small difference here. Because again, the reflectivity is going to be like in that 0.2 to 0.5 area, and there's going to be a very small amount of difference. To be honest, we could probably just set specularity in the value for the material and leave it, even with this. But I'm going to make a spec map just so you guys can kind of get the idea. To be honest, again, like I said last week, most of primary specular is going to be handled, most of the differences in primary specular is going to be handled in the roughness, which is what we're going to do next. The roughness is going to be very important. So again, we'll get our base, Command-Shift-U, turn the spec off. Okay. Now, we do have a slight problem. Our grout is black and our tile is white. And in fact, our grout should be darker than our tile because roughness is white. So we want the value for the roughness to be higher. We want the value for the grout to be higher in value, closer to white than the tile. So we could come in here and add an invert node like we did before, but we really don't need to because we're inverting the whole layer. So I'm just going to grab it and hit the Command-I hotkey, which is, again, image, adjustments, invert, and there's desaturate, by the way. So again, we don't want a lot of detail in the actual tiles. Mainly we're focusing on the difference between the grout and the tile itself. So levels, and then we're going to shift. Now even this is not going to be super white, so we are going to kind of move our white a little bit lower. But it's not going to be super black either. The tile is not immediately super reflective. So we're going to kind of move this a little bit more in the gray range because it's going to have some, it's not going to be 100% reflective. It's going to have some roughness to it, even though it's pretty smooth. And if we wanted to, we could get the color picker out here and make sure the value is like 0.3 or whatever, but I'm not going to be that picky. Okay, put this in our folder. Ah, why? Okay, so now we have to save all of our maps out. That's interesting because it's using, let's just give that a new base layer. Base. Adding in those clouds kind of screwed me up. All right, so first of all, I need to. So first of all, we are going to save out our PSD. Tile floor should suffice for the name, and then I will give it a 1911 in front of it. And this is the PSD, so we're just going to leave that. And then we're going to save a Targa. So after that, I'm going to add diff, or I could put color, but I'm going to do diff. By the way, wait for me to screw one of these up, guys. I always screw one up. And now this one is going to be our bump. I already screwed it up. Diff is a PSD, not a Targa. How did that happen? How did that happen? Targa. All right. Targa. Pump. Targa. Spec. And finally, rough. How do I know which one's a target is PSD? There's a file extension at the end, guys. .tga, .psd, .tga, .psd. See the diff.psd? That one is what I screwed up. Although sometimes you guys go in and you rename it so the file extension is wrong. That just messes up my world. Do not do that. Do not rename it to change the file extension. Because I try to open it and Photoshop's like, I can't open this. It says it's a Targa, but it's not. I'm like, great. Now I get to play the game of guess the correct file type. How do I know which format to save them as? If you're for your Photoshop document, which is your working document, save it as a PSD. Everything else, save as a Targa. That is the requirement of the class. Okay, so I'm going to leave Photoshop running, which might be a mistake or it might not be. Now we are going to go into Maya, and we are going to render out our textures. Over here, I just want you to be close to Photoshop in case I need you. And flux is bothering me here. Let's see, flux. How long has that been there? Okay. All right. So let us go to an interior scene that we can use to do our textures. And I think I have one that we can use in the interior Maya project. I think we can use this one, the UV'd one. Okay, here's our environment. Those have a material on them because I was just demoing some things. Don't worry about that. Just a different colored material. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're actually going to apply our tiled texture to the floor. So the first thing I'm going to do is add a new Pixar surface to it because I haven't done the materials assignment yet for these new scenes. So we just started using them and I've been very busy. And so I'm going to go ahead and set my edge color up here. I'm going to set my face color to 0.2 or 0.28. No, that's too high. 0.28. There we are. Now, let's talk about how to set up the texture. And I'm going to open up the Hypershade just so you guys can see. And I have all these. Oh, these are Pixar surfaces. Huh. Well, I'll be tiled floor. Here's our material. The Hypershade is going to be a lot more useful now that we're assigning textures, and you will see why. So first, we're going to do our color. And you're going to assign, sorry, it's in a different lecture, Demo Depot, our diffuse targa. I really wish I didn't have this here. So you know what? Go to track. I deleted the PSD. Okay. 7 should allow us to actually see. 6 should allow us to see textures. Okay. So that looks great. What do you guys think? That looks like the UVs are broken. Why are the UVs broken? Hang on. I can fix that. Planar. Y. There we go. Now, our tiles are ginormous, you may have noticed. That is to be expected. If you see this, your scene is not broken. This is where Hypershade comes into handy because we've got nodes. This is our material node. This is where we spent all of our time last week. This is our texture node. This is what is actually looking for the file on our computer. If we move our file from the file path it's looking for it in, or if we didn't set our project, this will not work. And then finally, we have our 2D placement node. This controls things like tiling, things like rotation, so we could rotate our tiled floor if we wanted to. Things like repeating, so we can increase this to 4. Ta-da! Oh, wow, that tile I added in is black? Why is it black? What? Oh, it's not being inverted. Well, poop. All right, hang on. Delete layer mask. Delete layer mask. Hide you too. Black is... Was black the original color? All right. Similar. Okay. And then we'll just remask these. There we go. Perfect. So there was something wrong with my texture, so I had to go back in and fix it in Photoshop. Then I got to tell Maya to reload this. There we go. We can still kind of see it, but it's less annoying than it used to be. All right. So let's fix this. There we go. Tiles are still a little bit too big. We might want to go to 8. Eh, 6. There we go. And by the way, we can turn our wrapping off, which makes it look invisible. Ah, wait, it's still over there in the corner. Aha! Set this back to 2. And so what it's doing is it's only showing the texture in that corner. Everywhere else is gray. So we'll just put our wrap back on. My tiling is a little bit too thick in my repeat tile. Oh well. They just spaced that area tile a little bit too spacey. So now, I'm gonna hide the hypershade just because I got too many dang windows. If we render, we will see our desk. Wait, it's not what I wanted to do. Curses. Stop. Actually, I need to create a new camera. Our project camera. And we will look through our project camera. Yeah, the kitchen's over there. I always forget the kitchens even exist because we don't look at it. Okay. So here we have our fabulous floor. Feels a little weird. And what is the repeat set to on this? 6? Okay. Those tiles look a little stretched. Probably a thing with the UVs. We'll fix that by changing the repeat in one direction. Yeah, that's fine. We'll leave it at that. Now, this time we'll render from the project camera. And sorry, I forgot that this scene takes a while to render. So we actually are going to go back to our project camera and just move in closer to look at the floor. So we don't have to deal with all the overhead from all the other things in the scene. What are my settings at? Max depth doesn't need to be at 10. We'll lower that to 6. As you can see, the texture's there. It's taking a little bit of extra time because this scene is a little bulky. The interior scene takes a little while to render. I'm tempted to do a regional view, but that'll start the process over. It is fairly noisy, and we got this big specular highlight in the middle. That will go away when we start applying our roughness maps. So, I'm going to start applying the other maps so you guys can see this process. I am actually going to temporarily remove the color map because when you're building textures, you should actually focus on color last. So what we're going to do is we're going to do the bump map and then the specular face color and then the reflection, and then we'll do the color back in. So to do bump, you got to come down all the way to globals. You're going to do bump checker. You're not going to do file yet. You're going to look for utilities, bump 2D. And that bump 2D node, you're going to plug value, file, and that is where we put our height map, or bump map. Sorry. We do need to make sure the tiling is the same as the tiling here. So 6 and 8. And then, sorry, we're going to redo our render here. Project camera. Now, I intentionally left the bump value at 1, bump depth. We are going to need to select our bump utility node. We are going to need to change that because that is too much bump, which you can't see because it's so noisy. It's those darn double domes. Render time takes forever in this scene. You guys can see the bump. It's terrible. Why does the render take so long? Good thing we have denoise. All right. I'm going to use the regional view because we are going to change the bump value. We're going to change it to 0.5. It's still too strong. 0.2. Point 1. To be fair, the noise is actually going away now. Let's try 0.05. Point 0.02. Nah, I think that's too subtle. 0.05. So noisy. Okay. So that's our bump map. Now, we'll go ahead and add the specular face color map in, even though I don't really think we need it. Specular face color, click there. File. Space. spec. And then don't forget we have to go over here and change this to match. Why is it red? I don't know why it's red. I don't like that. Don't be red. Mm. Okay, 6 and then 8. Get our render view back. So do we see a huge difference from last time? Kind of. There definitely is a difference in reflectivity from here to there. And our roughness map's probably just going to intensify that just a bit, that difference. Okay. So let's go ahead and we will add the roughness map in. Roughness, file, rough. And then don't forget we have to go into our file node here and color balance, alphas, luminance, and then 6 and 8, which means now when we render, oh yeah, there's a significant difference. So much noise. All right, let's go ahead and we will add our color back in. This middle mouse button, drag it to color. There we go. Now it's going to take forever. It is very noisy, but you guys are starting to get the idea, right? I think that actually does a fairly good job mimicking our reference. You guys remember what our reference looks like? Ooh, probably a bit too smooth, actually. We should have decreased the value, or increased the value of the roughness. But it does have that direct sunlight hitting from the window. That's the window is what we're seeing. Over here, there's not a lot of reflectivity going. What do you guys think? How's it look compared to our reference? I think it looks pretty good. It's hard to tell with the noise, but I was hoping somebody would answer. The chat is dead. They're all asleep. You know, maybe we actually could bring that bump map up a little bit. Just mesmerized by the render. I definitely think we could increase the value on the roughness texture. All right. So there's one last thing that we're going to do. We are going to add a layered texture. So if we go over here, layered textures are for basically what you're going to do on the thermos or the SAL table. You can put a logo on top of another texture. So you're projecting one texture on the other. You have to use a layered texture for the interior scene or for the exterior scene. If you're doing the interior scene, the thermos logo is going to be a projector just projected in the primary specular face color. Or no, primary specular edge color, because that one is chrome. So you should have used an artistic note. So you're going to put it in primary specular edge color. You're just going to do the projection in there. So you change the color, it's not going to do anything. So in order to do that, we are going to need to first isolate well, first of all, let's remap this. And actually, I'm going to get rid of this stupid spec map because we're not even using it. Okay, so we're going to isolate our color map. I don't know why it goes to the bottom. That's weird. And on our material, we're going to put a new color node in. We're going to go to other textures, layered texture. And this is actually really cool because this is how you can layer multiple textures together to get interesting effects. So what we have here is basically Photoshop layers on their side. So right off the bat, we have this green, but we can middle mouse button drag our tile in, and whichever one is on top is the one that gets displayed. You are plugged in. You should display. Display. Stupid green. All right. So I'm going to replace green really quickly with a checker. That used to work. Oh. Checker. Doesn't want to display the checker. Fine. Be a jerk. See if I care. This means I have to render it, which I don't really want to do. Because the render is slow. Oh, don't do the decks. Come on. Okay, it's ignoring color. That is problematic because we needed to recognize color. Why are you? Okay, so we've got the green. Good. Green is good. And then we'll put our tiled texture there. And then we will change this to the checker again. All right. That's what I wanted to see. So we can change these. There's our tile floor. There's our checker by middle mouse button dragging. And we can use blending modes, which Tony Saxon will go over in the Campus Lecture 10. So we can do like a multiply, where it makes the black more visible because it's multiplying the value of the color by 0 for black. Add, which will make the white more visible. And then subtract, which will actually make the white areas black. And we can do like over, which just makes that one on top visible. But we also have an alpha to do kind of opacity, which is not working. Sweet. Oh, there it is. Now, for a checkerboard day, that's kind of useless, but we're actually going to change the checker. So instead, we're going to put our file in. And I should have... Where is it? A Corgi alpha. There we are. Giant Corgi. One big Corgi. Oh, shoot, I moved the project camera. I didn't want to do that. So we can, increase the tiling like we did before on the Corgi. So we can go in here and be like, all right, whatever, 10, 10. That's offset. But that just gives me an army of Corgis. Not what I was trying to do. Well, so instead, to control where this is going, we're going to delete it. And this time when we create a texture, we're going to go into our color, and we're going to right click on file, and we're going to create as projection. And so this, what it does is it gives me at the origin, there's this little extra node. This is going to control our texture once I plug it in. So right now it just looks like stripes. But if we rotate it towards the floor, we suddenly, and we can sort of tilt them, have control over our many, many Corgis. Too many Corgis. Too many Corgis. Now we only want one Corgi, so we can go over in our Place 2D and turn off the wrapping. There we go. So now we only have one. And we can go back into our project camera. Project. Oh, shoot. I'm in the project camera. Why do I keep moving the project camera? For crying out loud. I don't want to move the project camera. There we are. So we kind of use this to move our little logo. Happy little logo. But we do have this problem. We have this kind of gray background. And as you see, if we go over here to our layer texture, we can switch this to a multiply. We've got this kind of gray, 50% gray dark layer over it. And the reason for that is this gray. So what we got to do is we go to the file node. We can go to the color balance. If we switch that to black, no, it's not what we want. White matches the same color as the background. So now we go to our projection, we go to our layer texture. We change this to multiply. Ta-da! Now we can see our Corgi. Why do I just can't get out of this project camera. So now we can kind of move them around. And we can even go into the layer texture and sort of lower the alpha just a bit so we can see the tile floor underneath him. We would still get the bump value, but we'd assume that like our paint isn't like super dark or something. And we can even see it in RenderMan. Ta-da! All right, guys, while that renders, do I have any questions? Because this is the end of the lecture. We didn't get to substance. We never get to substance because we don't have time in the 2-hour Q&A. That's why I plug the lesson 6 or lecture 6 campus video where I do the campus video substance, and you guys can watch that. If you have questions about substance, you can definitely ask me in Discord. Substance Painter is not currently a required part of this class. You don't have to do Painter, but we do support you using Painter, and we do support you bringing the textures into Maya. Again, I will go over that process in Lecture 9. If you have problems with it, you can definitely ask me in Discord. I will be happy to help. Yes, the Hypershade is going to be your lifesaver. As you can see, it is far easier to sort of manage these texture connections when you have the Hypershade. Again, for the most part, you guys are probably going to be focusing on the color, which is a little confusing because we got all this layered stuff going on, and the bump. Not every single texture you guys use is going to be as complicated as this one. This one is fairly complicated because we have primary specular, we have roughness, we have layered texture in the diffuse, we have bump, so we have everything that we could possibly have going on. You guys aren't going to have that. If you do a layered texture on the table, it is going to have color, it'll have bump, and it'll have a layered texture, which is fairly complicated, but you won't have any sort of roughness map on it. It's going to be universally rough. I also deleted my roughness when I wanted to delete my primary specular. Cool. Didn't want to do that, but oh well. So much noise. So much noise. I have to figure out a way to improve this scene. All right, if you guys don't have any questions, you are good to go. You're over time, but I knew we'd go over time because this is a fairly complicated lecture. So, and as you see, I have more stuff I wish I could talk about, but I literally can't talk about it because we are totally out of time. All right, if you guys don't have any questions, that is it. I will hopefully see you in the Discord because that is the last Q&A from me. You are welcome to remain in the Discord and use it for help after you finish shading and lighting. Anytime you guys have textures or substance or materials or lighting related questions, we do encourage you to come back and ask us in the open lab. We do encourage you to come back and ask for critiques in the critiques channel. That is going to continue to be open to you. So next week I will go in and change your guys' role to SAL Past, which will open up availability to the Substance channel, where it is specifically meant for you guys to work through substance problems as well as show off your substance projects. I try to do challenges in there, but I'll be honest, I'm far too busy to maintain it. I really need someone to come along and be my dedicated substance Discord director. But that is all from me, and you guys are free to go. Have a good one. Thank you, Robert. And if you have any questions of substance, please let me know. But yes, we finally get to get into texturing, so things are going to look super awesome. We're doing it in RenderMan. Good night, everybody. Bye.